Well, good evening, everybody. Long time no see. Good to see you, man. Got a nice little crowd of people here wanting to hear me rant and rave about the new regulations that everybody and their brothers commenting on today. I doubt that very many of us have actually read all 470 70 pages, but Ed, love my drones. What new regulations? Yeah, you almost had to be off YouTube completely today or under a rock not to hear about these things. As a matter of fact, got an email earlier today from the FAA, and I got one from the AMA too. And the AMA email was interesting. Basically, they announced the fact that the FAA had published the new rules for remote ID, and then they said they need to take a couple of days to digest it and read it, and then they'll be coming out with their opinion. And I think as far as the AMA is concerned, as long as they have their flying fields, not much is going to change with them. I've been an AMA member for over 50 years, and that seems to be all they care about is their flying fields, and they really don't care much about drones. And drone guys and most of us at most flying fields don't get a very nice reception. We're considered a pain in the ass and in the way, so I hardly ever go to the AMA flying field anymore. But of course, this really does affect their hobby. But you don't see people out in the places that we fly FPV drones or even camera drones flying model airplanes. Model airplanes, you pretty well want a field with a nice runway and the other guys that are flying along with you to have somebody to talk to, just like the FPV guys like to get together. So let me say hi to everybody. I see Ed sitting in the green room. I'll bring him in a second. I'm going to. I want this to be kind of a discussion here. So I've sent out some invites in by email, but I'm going to try again to put the StreamYard link in the chat. And I know it wasn't working there for a while, so I was seeing it, but nobody else was. So let me know if the link actually showed up in the chat, and feel free to use it and come on in. So it's working now. Good, super. Carlos, how you doing, buddy? Ray Kelly's in the green room. I happen to have a paid subscription to StreamYard now, which means that I can cram this thing full of 10 people. So not only will you guys have the pleasure of hearing 6 people trying to talk at once, we can maybe have 10 people trying to talk at once. That I think that'd be really entertaining. So Ed was the first one in the chat this morning. Ed, Jody followed shortly thereafter. Yowie P51 came in and commented on Bruce Simpson, that's XJet, on his video about the new rules. And of course, XJet is in Australia. He's and he's following the FAA rules. And then Geeks Vana, Sean came on with a 45-minute live stream. Mel came on with a live stream. Everybody else was on with a live stream. And I said, I better get on with a live stream or people are going to think that I don't care. And I have some interesting takes on some of these new rules, and it'd be fun to discuss them, see where I might be wrong, because again, I haven't read the 470 pages quite yet. Michael Blade, how you doing? Matt Cundiff, how you doing, buddy? Who else we got here? Ray Kelly's in the house. John Coopy's in the house. Hiya, John. How you? Susan Lee. Excuse me. Hey, Susan. Ken Hoffbauer, place it here. How are you? Paulie, Drone Bum is in, and good to see you guys. Good to see you. Dan, Drone Pool. See who I missed. If anybody. Carlos is in the house. Mark A. How you doing, Mark? Good to see you. And Brent Nunley. Hi, Brent. How you doing, buddy? Jody, of course, Drone Shots. He's in. And let's see. I'm still going here. RC Funds Diversions. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. And Michael McReynolds is here. That's great, man. Good to see you all. Um, so let me bring in Ed. How you doing, Ed? There we
Hey,
go.
man.
All right, good. Your mic's working. Good to see you. And Ray Kelly. Hey, Ray.
Hey, hey, Mitch. Hey, Ed. Everybody in the chat.
So Ray, you're coming up this way tomorrow,
Going right past you, right up to
and
St.
you're
Augustine.
not going to stop, and you're not going to stop and say hello.
Maybe on the return.
What are you just going up to fly?
No, no. Actually, my wife and I, we planned on going up to St. Augustine to see the lights. You know how they light up the
Yeah,
downtown
yeah,
with
okay,
Christmas lights? So we're
okay.
going up there, and then Ken had said, "Oh well, let's get together and fly."
I see John Coopy's kind of got it all summarized in the chat, so I guess there's no need for us to talk about it.
30 months and 60 days? That's an odd time frame.
No, it's because we'll talk about the different time frames because uh, I from what I've heard on all the different videos I've watched and the reading, I've heard a lot of opinion. I've heard a lot of fear, disappointment, uh, and misunderstanding of what I think some of the things mean. But the two things that I was most afraid of, the things that could have completely wrecked FPV, was in the initial proposal, they had a requirement that only an approved quad, manufactured quad, could be flown or drone could be flown. And they didn't address any of us that fly quads or home built or have a closet full of old quads. They didn't address that at all. They basically said in the initial notice of proposed the NPRM that you had to buy a quad that was pre-approved by the FAA with built-in remote ID to be able to legally fly it anywhere, and that was a terrible thing. And the second thing that really upset me was this business about being connected to the internet and having everybody and their brother have an app on their cell phone where they could see who was flying, his name, his address, and everything else. The privacy aspects of that. Those two things primarily were the killers. And the good news is that neither of those is reality now.
That's good. That's great, actually.
And they have added a whole bunch of very confusing things that will actually allow us to fly over people if you meet certain criteria. And all the quad flying over people that's going to be legal is going to be with whoop styles or cinewhoops, but ducted, shrouded props. They're very concerned about cutting people up, and I don't blame them. But they're going to relax that. The next biggest thing for me personally that I was really happy to hear, and I know some people that are in the Part 107 education business are going to be very unhappy to hear, is that they are doing away with the 24-month retesting for Part 107 pilots.
How long is it going to be now?
It's not going to be. They've done away with any retesting where you have to actually pay $160 and go into a testing center and take a test. What they're going to have now is they're going to have some of their typical FAA online tests, multiple choice tests, where you almost can't fail. And they're going to be more like continuing education type things. And they'll be coming up with some currency requirements. And these online tests are going to be free. So once you pass that 107 exam, you're pretty much done with all of that nonsense now of having to restudy and get recertified every 2 years. You're just going to have to do the drill if you're a 107 pilot. Go online. And I've taken some of these online tests from the FAA, and they give you a little study, usually a little study guide, 15, 20 minutes. You go through the study and then you take the test. And if you fail the test, they tell you what questions you got wrong. And then you go back and fix the questions that were wrong. And you get and everybody generally gets 100%. And you've got whatever requirements you're going to need to stay current. But that $160 test that you had to take and study for it or pay somebody for is gone, and that's not gone in 3 years. That's gone as soon as this rule is published. This rule is published is going to be published in January. So the remote ID, and there's a lot more to this these FAA regulations than just the remote ID. Now, the remote ID is where the 30 months and the 18 months comes in, as far as I understand it. And as far as I understand it, manufacturers who are going to build the remote ID into their drones have 18 months to get it done. And then we all have a year after that before it's actually mandatory to fly. So as far as remote ID goes, we have 2.5 years now before it's the law that you have to fly with remote ID. Okay, so that's pretty good, because 2.5 years is a long time for technology innovation. Like I mentioned, another very important thing they actually made a big point of was that any internet connectivity requirements while you're flying a drone are gone. Now, they do mention in the executive summaries that the remote ID is going to require, it said, a personal device like a cell phone or something. But I don't know what for, because they actually came out and said that it's not going to have to connect to the internet. Okay, so that's those are the main worries. So I came away from this whole thing.
Well, let me ask you a quick question, Mitt.
Sure.
So this only applies to drones over 250 grams, correct?
Unless you're flying a sub 250 gram drone on a 107 type of flight. Okay. In other words,
this doesn't apply to 336 at all.
No, this is, well, your 336 is the current regulation governing model airplanes, and I think that's all going to be completely out the window once this new stuff comes in. I don't think anybody even talks about 336. Is that what you're talking about? The exemption?
It's just a hobbyist thing.
Yeah, well, there'll be no rules. If you're a hobbyist and you're flying a sub 250 gram drone, you don't need remote ID, but you do still have to obey the FAA regulations. You still can't legally fly in controlled airspace. You still can't legally fly out of line of sight. You still can't legally fly without a visual observer if you're wearing goggles. You understand what I'm saying? So it's going to basically be no difference. It'll be exempt from remote ID. For you, Ed, if you don't have a 107, your whoops, like your Tiny Hawk 2, you continue to fly around your house like you do now, no difference. But if you go to fly your 5-inch, you're going to have a remote ID on it. And that was the actual first thing that hit me when I looked at these executive summaries. Sunrise Water. Posting online is a gray area. Yeah, if you have a monetized channel. If your channel's not monetized, then you're not your videos are not in furtherance of a business if you don't have a monetized channel. Now they can claim that YouTube makes money, but I don't think, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about tonight is the reality of what level of enforcement there's going to be, because I hear a lot of these people losing their mind, like they think there's going to be a drone cop on every corner with a cell phone monitoring anything that's flying. These policemen can't even keep track of people going 100 miles an hour on I-95. You know what I
Agreed.
mean? And I mean they could park their ass in the median and catch 100 of them an hour, but there's just not enough police to go around to police the real things. I don't think we're going to have brown shirts marching around the parks where we fly,
Brown.
demanding to see our credentials, our papers. I
You
think
don't think
people
it'd be
are
a
making
geofence, a
what's that?
geofence thing right in the DJI Fly app, or where they
I
can
don't.
track you and all of that, or not allow you to fly?
Well, geofencing is designed to keep you from flying in controlled airspace. That's got nothing to do with remote ID.
Okay. Yep.
It's got nothing to do. The geofencing is one thing. The remote ID is something else. And if you're outside of controlled airspace flying a Mavic, you're going to need, in 2.5 years, you're going to need remote ID. If you want to fly that same Mavic in controlled airspace, you're also going to still need the remote ID, but you're also going to need a clearance from, for the flight using the Lance app, or Line, however you pronounce it, or like that. It's there's a lot of regulations, and they just keep piling on like everything else. They just keep adding thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of rules to these things. But as far as we're concerned, there's probably only going to be very few things we need to be aware of. The biggest thing that hit me, and the first thing that hit me, and I'm going to try to find it over here. So let me go over to the actual paperwork itself here. There we go. And I don't know if any of you can read that or not, but I have the here it is.
It's too small to read. You'll have to read it for us, Mitch.
Is this the one I wanted, or there's so many pages, hundreds and hundreds of pages of this stuff. I probably can't find what I was. Okay, here you go. This is the part that was important to me. There's 3 different. Let me read this. Except in accordance with the requirements of this rule, no unmanned aircraft can be produced for operation in the airspace of the United States after, it says insert date, 60 days and 18 months after the date of publication in the Federal Register, which is going to be next month. And no unmanned aircraft can be operated in the airspace of the United States after 60 days and 30 months after the date of publication in the Federal Register without the remote ID. Standard remote identification unmanned aircraft. Standard remote identification unmanned aircraft broadcasts the remote identification message elements directly from the unmanned aircraft from takeoff to shutdown. The required message elements include a unique identifier to establish the identity of the aircraft, and every one of these devices is going to have a unique address, just like every network card has a MAC address, and these things, every one you're going to buy is going to have a unique address, and that's going to be referenced in the FAA drone registry to whoever is the owner. And you're going to be required, when you either install a remote ID module on an existing aircraft or buy an aircraft with the module installed in it, you're going to need to register the module ID alongside of the drone, when you go in the FAA to register a drone, there's going to be a place for the remote ID module, and that's how they're going to cross-reference it to you. An identification of the unmanned aircraft latitude, longitude, geometric altitude, and velocity. Okay, so that means that since most of the FPV drones do not have GPSs in them or barometers, that any drone that you're going to fly that's going to have remote ID is going to have a GPS module. It's going to have a barometer for altitude. All the DJI drones already have those things. Most of the camera drones do, but very few of the FPV drones do. So I believe, and this is where we have to wait and see how free market enterprise takes over. And I want to get to the external module in a second, but let me finish this one. Altitude, an indication of the control station location. So it is going to basically send the location of the pilot, a time mark, and an emergency status indication, which I don't know what the scheme is for that yet. Operators may choose whether to use the serial number of the unmanned aircraft or a session ID, an alternative form of identification that provides additional privacy to the operator as the unique identifier. And that takes away the fear that we all had that John Q. Public will be able to go on his cell phone and find out who's flying the drone. They're going to make it more like a license plate. People will be able to see the identifier, but only law enforcement people, the FAA and every agency with 3 letters and then some, will actually be able to go into the government's databases and cross-reference that number with the name and address of the pilot. Just like police can go in and find out who owns a car by the license plate, you and I can't, unless we know somebody downtown.
Which is good.
So that takes away that little worry that everybody was losing their mind over, and I don't blame them. Okay, so here's the one that I like, is that they're not out yet. Very few people, if anybody, I guess, knows what they're going to have to do, but the industry is probably going to go to work very shortly developing remote ID modules. Okay, and these I can see them coming from 2 different directions. I can see one side of these modules coming from the camera drone market, like DJI. DJI has got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of drones out there without remote ID. So there's no doubt in my mind that DJI will come up with a refit module that will go on every drone, every model of drone that they have. And because people aren't going to just throw away their old drones and buy new drones just because of this rule. So they'll come out with one that, of course, will be government approved, and it'll be easy to install, and it'll probably work in conjunction with a firmware update and maybe stick on top of the thing with sticky, who knows. But I'm pretty sure that big manufacturers like DJI, Autel, and those guys are going to come up with their own remote IT modules. That leaves the rest of China, who makes all the little VTX boards and flight controllers and video cameras and all the pieces and parts that we use in our FPV drones. I think that people like iFlight, GEP-RC are going to all start developing whatever system on a chip, whatever chip they need to develop, and then this chip will probably be used in a little board, the size of maybe the size 20 by 20 stack board, or something that we can just throw into the stack on our quads. More than likely, they'll build one that has the GPS built into it. It'll have a barometer built in, so it can have altitude, and probably a cell phone app that goes with it to read the information, so that you know what the you can see whether it's working, what it's broadcasting. Make sure that it's doing everything it's supposed to do. It has to have a UART interface to the flight controller, because the law says, one of the things in this new rule says that if the remote ID is not working, there has to be a mechanism on the remote ID chip that will not allow the quad to arm. Kind of like when you have a GPS on your quad and you haven't got enough satellites, it won't let you arm. Well, the remote ID chip has to have that same functionality. So, Michael Wright, it says, it appears that no U.S. company will be allowed to develop the broadcast module for any DJI drones. Yeah, more than likely, but it's a big world, and China has their own engineers, and they, I'm sure, will be able to develop this. In fact, most of this is probably going to come out of China, since, say, 95% of the parts and pieces that we use to build our FPV quads, certainly most of the electronics, come out of China anyway. So I think that that's not going to be a problem. But like I said, the good news is it says that you can refit a module on anything.
It can be
Okay.
transferable.
No, because each quad that you fly, let's break it down. There's two different categories. There's recreational flying, and then there's 107 flying. So you know that, and when you're a recreational flyer with the FAA, you only have to pay $5. You get a number, and you put that same number on everything you're flying. When you're a 107 pilot and you're using your aircraft in a 107 activity, you have to register that aircraft separately, pay $5 for it. Now, I'm both. Okay, I am a 107, and yet I have airplanes and quads that I just fly for recreation. So I have both a recreational certificate and a 107, and when I'm not flying anything, like some of my model airplanes, when I'm not flying anything that I'm going to make videos of and throw on a monetized YouTube channel, or absolutely no 107 business use whatsoever, I just throw that same recreational number on there. So if you're a recreational pilot and you only have one number, each individual aircraft, they say, and again, this is just first read on this stuff, they say is going to need its own distinct remote ID module. So in that case, you would have to have your recreational number and then go into the FAA program on the computer website and register each and every one of the modules that you're using. So it can be referenced to a particular airplane, make and model, weight, whatever other information they're going to need about these things. But the way it stands right now, it would be a pain in the ass to be pulling this module out of one and putting it in another. It's going to have to probably be hardwired into a quad or built into it. And you know that in 2.5 years, most of the big manufacturers of the quads we fly, the people like FRC, iFlight, Emax, all those guys, are going to have remote ID built right onto a flight controller. Okay, they'll have a flight controller that'll have remote ID in it, and it'll have a GPS antenna stuck on the quad. You stick on the quad somewhere, and bingo, you're going to have remote ID. That's what I think. I think that the industry is innovative enough to, and technology is advanced enough that would make a lot of sense, because they would not be allowed to sell in 2.5 years. iFlight would not be able to sell a Nazgul quad, pre-built Nazgul quad, without remote ID. So why not? build it into the flight controller, or have a board to go in the stack that has all that functionality in it. And then that problem is going to be solved, and all we have to do as pilots is just go through the extra drill of registering it, which I'm not upset about that. I'm not really all that upset about registering these things. I do recognize that they're in the wrong hands. You know, people can do bad things with drones, and I do recognize
Right.
that it's going to, in 20, 30, 40 years, the skies are going to look like the Jetsons. Shit's going to be going every which way, and they have to have some way of integrating all that traffic together so that it all looks out for each other. I'm not against that. I was against this whole nonsense because it looked like they were really going to shut our hobby down. And as it stands now, I'm optimistic that we
Right.
will be able to get what we need to comply with the law. And in some respects, I think it's already leading to new rules that are going to be active here, very shortly, that under certain circumstances, you're going to be allowed to fly over people. You're going to be allowed to fly at night. And I don't think it's going to be too long, and I can't say how long, and this is my opinion, before we're going to be allowed to not have to have visual line of sight. I think once we have a certain amount of electronics in these quads and the remote ID and safety features and all that stuff, I think we're actually going to be allowed to fly out of line of sight. Certainly, all the commercial operators who are going to be delivering packages are going to be able to do that. Initially, it looks like for flying over people, they've divided the quads into four different categories. And I'm trying to find the executive summary here. Executive summary: the operations over people. They have Category 1 operations, okay? Category 1 operations, operations over people as permitted using a small unmanned aircraft that weighs 0.55 pounds, which is 250 grams, or less, including everything that's on board otherwise attached. Now, since it's under 250 grams, it doesn't need remote ID. And this is not about remote ID. This is a whole nother area. There's two different distinct things that came out today. There's the remote ID side of these new regulations, and then a whole block of regulations about flying over people. Then there's another kind of adjunct to this where they made a number of changes to Part 107. So whereas the remote ID stuff isn't going to affect us, basically mandatory for 2.5 years, this other stuff is going to come in right away. Hey, Carlos, and allow us to, with our little tiny whoops, for example, to fly over people and moving cars.
Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt.
Got the t-shirt. And let me read this to you. Category 1 operations over people are permitting using a small unmanned aircraft that weighs 250 grams or less, including everything that's on board attached to the aircraft at the time of takeoff and throughout the duration of each operation, and does not contain any exposed rotating parts that would lacerate human skin on impact with a human being. Okay? So if you've got a tiny whoop or any kind of a cinewhoop, well, even a bigger one than that. Some of these 4-inch ones have shrouds on them and weigh less than 250 grams. You're cleared. You pretty well go out there, and if you fly over people, and I think the same things apply to moving cars. I know they have a section on moving cars, but I haven't had a chance to read all 470 pages of this yet. And they say remote pilots are responsible for determining that their small unmanned aircraft does not exceed the weight threshold and ensuring that their small unmanned aircraft does not contain any exposed rotating parts. So this is kind of like a self-policing thing. They're saying that we're responsible for making sure that our little quads fit in the rules. So that handles the quads. Then they come up with this one, Category 2 operations. Interestingly enough, it says to be eligible for Category 2, a small unmanned aircraft must comply with 3 safety requirements. Doesn't say anything about the weight. It says the small unmanned aircraft must be designed, produced, or modified such that it will not cause injury to a human being that is equivalent to or greater than the severity of injury caused by a transfer of 11 foot-pounds of kinetic energy upon impact from a rigid object. Okay. Now, I understand what that means, but I don't know how much what 11 foot-pounds feels like, to tell you the truth.
No.
Okay. Is it a slap in the face? It is a baseball to the head? I don't know, but it is quantifiable, and there'll be a way. Drone manufacturers, for example, when they sell a drone, when DJI sells a Mavic, it'll be labeled as a Class 2 drone or a Class 3 drone, and you won't have to. I mean, will have gone through the specs, made sure that however they label it complies with these definitions. So you may have a Class 2 drone with a Mavic. You may have a Class 3 drone with an Inspire or a Matrice, and you may have a Class 4 UAV with a 200-pound agricultural sprayer drone that needs to be certified and registered with the FAA as an aircraft. So they have 4 categories. Carlos, did you?
Yeah, I just want to cut, because people have been making comments, and one that struck me is by Mark Gay. He wrote, "Odd how they come from communist China with systems built in it to fall in line with super restrictive laws in the USA. Was the FAA discussing this with the CCP?" That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like that point.
Look.
Good point, Mark. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Other people are saying other stuff.
Yeah, and whether they're discussing it with the Chinese government or whether they're discussing it with Brandon Schulman, who's the legal representative from DJI, I would think that they'd be discussing it with Schulman. I think this is more a business thing. They've already slapped DJI on the wrist with these new entity list sanctions, and they slap these Chinese companies, but it's a big world. A lot of shit goes on in the background. I don't care about that. All I care about is I can get in my car, drive to the park, fly my drone, have a good time, and not go to jail. Okay, that's what the rest of the world at this point I have no control over, guys. So I would rather comply with the law, because when I comply with the law, I'm covered.
You're giving up your rights, Mitch. Stop it.
There's no rights, Carlos. You have no rights. You have rights.
Yes,
yeah,
you
the
do.
only rights you have. I'm not going to argue politics with you here tonight.
No, it's not an argument. All I'm saying is, if you comply, then you're giving up your rights. That's all.
Well, then don't drive a car anymore. Don't get a driver's license. Don't get a driver's license.
It's two different things. That's already been established. You keep giving more and more.
Well, I'm not here.
In my humble opinion, sir.
Okay, and I'm going to slap you down on that. Okay, because that's not why we're here. That's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here because I wanted to give my opinions on these things and what I think is going to happen to stop all this panic that this has created in our community, because I don't think it's really going to be that bad. I don't think we're going to be unable to fly anymore. I think reading these new things, almost all of the crap that was in the proposed rules are gone. The stuff that the main things like you have to buy a new quad because none of your old quads will qualify to be flown with remote ID. Well, that's gone now. And I said way back then when we first heard about this, I said, I think they're going to end up coming up with a little module that you can plug onto your, put on your quad and fly it. And it turns out that's the second thing I read today. Who are you talking to, Carlos? You talking behind?
It seems like it's really a lot better than I thought too, Mitch.
The way I talk in the chat is I talk text.
It's a lot better than I thought, and the main fears that I had didn't come to pass because they didn't make any sense. And like I said, the two biggest takeaways that I have from this, I don't fly over people anyway, so I'm not really concerned about that. However, if I was doing a commercial job and I had to fly over people, there's now a legal path or fly over cars for me to do that. There's a legal path that I can do it and not break the law. And better to have that, to have the option of obeying the law than having no way to do it legally, knowing that whatever you do, you're going to be in trouble if somebody decides to come after you. And a lot of these things don't just apply to us little FPV whoop flyers. There's a lot of drone operations going on, more and more every day. Power line inspections, search and rescue stuff, agriculture, spraying, big ass drones. And they've made provisions for those things. They've made provisions for us. But the biggest thing for me was the fact that they said there's three ways you can fly a drone legally after remote ID comes in. One, you can buy a drone that's been manufactured and compliant. Two, you can install an external module on an existing drone. Or three, fly in a FRIA, a designated airspace, which is not a good answer for most people because most people don't live down the street from an AMA field.
So will the module on your drone, will that affect the range and Wi-Fi interference? From Johnny Drone Flyer.
I don't know. I don't know because there isn't such a module that exists yet. That's why the industry was given a year and a half to build them into their drones, and two and a half years.
It's gotta have a separate transmitter on it, doesn't it, or will it come out of the same BTS?
No, because you may not have you may have a digital quad, you may have a DJI quad, you may have a camera drone. So it's going to have to. I think it'll have its own transmitter in it, and whether it operates on 2.4 or some other frequency is yet to be determined. They say Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity to a cell phone, but what good does that do if the cell phone is not required to be connected to the internet? So these are things we're going to see. And at this stage of the game, nobody, especially me, nobody can come in here. Even somebody that's read the whole, even a lawyer that's read the whole 470 pages can come in and say exactly what's going to happen 2 years from now. There may be things in those pages that are technically impossible to do.
And I mean, here's the thing too, is that most of these people that came up with this crap are bureaucrats and have never flown an FPV drone, know nothing about what it's about. They know plane.
Unfortunately, Ed, as much as we love this hobby of FPV flying, as much as we love it, we're insignificant dust mites in the overall scheme of aviation in general, okay, and remote piloted aviation. They don't give a shit about quad flyers.
Why should we care about them, Mitch?
Because you live in this country, unfortunately, and they have the power to take your freedom away. Okay, Carlos, I understand, man, that it's easy to say I don't do it. I'm fuck you, FAA. I'm not gonna blah 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 blah. That's great, man. Until they come and slap, do a Mikey on you, fine you $180,000 and take your house away.
I don't do dumb stuff to attract attention.
It doesn't matter. We live in a country. Unfortunately, the laws in our country, without getting too political, don't mean shit anymore anyway.
So then why should I obey the ones that don't mean anything?
Because you're the guy that's going to get caught, and you're the guy that's going to get
questions. Those are rhetorical questions. But you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
I understand what you're saying, Carlos. I understand what you're saying, but
they don't care. I should care less even.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way.
But I'm going to try. That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't work that way.
You're going to try.
And for you
there's still so much speculation that's involved here.
It's not as
We
much
gotta
as there
wait and
was.
see.
Not as much as there was.
No, no.
Good evening, Chris Hope.
No.
Oh, Chris Hope. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
He's
Yeah,
not
there's
that
not
important.
as much as there was. But I tell you what, Carlos. I mean, I understand your
I'm not here
attitude.
to. I'm not arguing with you for the sake of. I'm just giving you my opinion.
No, and
That's all I'm saying.
I understand, and everybody, everybody wants to express civil disobedience, and and I'm not going to obey the laws. The hell but unfortunately, we live in a country where they have the power and we don't.
Can we civil
So
disobedience in a hobby shop so we can break in and
yeah,
steal stuff and then burn the place down? Just
uh,
kidding.
I'm trying tonight to spread a ray of hope in our community that it's not nearly as bad as we all thought it was going to be, and complying with this is going to
Right.
be easy.
I used to
Okay.
register my drones, Michael, right? But I don't have any drones that are registerable other than those big ones behind me. And no, I'm not registering those. I'm not putting numbers on them. And so that means no in that respect. At one time when I had the GPS, I did. The FPV, I am not.
Carlos,
Mitch, all you.
Carlos, you and I come from we both come from different areas of aviation. Okay, see, for me, I'm a licensed pilot. I had to go through incredibly expensive training, all kinds of tests, recurrency tests, okay, to get the ratings that I have as a pilot. I have a commercial pilot's license, multi-engine rating, instrument rating, instructor's rating, and instrument instructor's rating. Okay? With that work and those licenses are privileges, not rights. They're privileges. Because I don't want somebody that doesn't know what he's doing up there in the air with me when I'm flying around. Okay? And I've had a few close calls in the air with people that shouldn't be flying airplanes.
It's the same thing in a boat. I mean, not as
But
tragic.
you don't need a
Yeah.
license to drive a boat. You need a license to fly an airplane. You don't have to pick up a microphone in a boat and call air traffic control and get clearance to take off.
No, I
And
get
then
all
make
that.
sure- make sure
what
that
does
you
that have
have
to do with anything as far as go ahead?
it has to, Carlos.
In
It has
New
to
York,
it has
you
to
have
do
to-
with
you have to-
with difference in our attitudes. In other words, if I had the same attitude about flying as you have about drones, I would say, "Oh, to hell with you, FAA! I don't need a goddamn pilot's license. I can afford an airplane. I'm just going to go buy an airplane and fly where the hell I want, and you can't do anything about it." And you want to know something? They can do something about it, Carlos.
That's completely different. Not to mention they have these guys. What do they call them? The three-wheeled fans with the parachutes. They don't need any licenses or anything like that, right?
That's because they fit into a particular category of the federal laws that regulate ultralights. In other words, any aircraft below 250 pounds, 255 pounds, you don't need a pilot's license to fly. Doesn't mean you're smart. You better still take lessons and learn how to do it.
That makes sense.
But you don't need a pilot. They also came out now with what they call sport pilot's licenses. These are pilot's licenses that give you certain privileges, but you can't fly at night. You're limited until you get a regular private pilot's license. And then just as in aviation, as in UAS, if I want to fly for hire, I can't do it with a private pilot's license. I need to have a commercial pilot's license, and that's what they've carried through to the SUAS. Now, keep in mind, most of the guys that I've met that work for the FAA are aviation guys. Okay, the FAA, when it comes to being bureaucrats, is probably less bureaucratic than most agencies, because most of them are with the FAA because they love aviation. And God knows how many of the guys that were in my flying clubs when I flew model RC airplanes worked for the FAA. And based on the fact that they brought some common sense into the rewrite of these laws, I'm not going to be civilly disobedient here. I'm going to say it's not bad, and we can easily and probably rather inexpensively comply with this. And I think in the long run, we'll actually have what we can do with our quads expanded into areas that are illegal to us now. And the first of that is flying over people and moving vehicles. Second might be out of visual line of sight. So I think that's a natural course of what's coming. So I came on tonight to lift this. All I'm hearing on all these other videos and streams is what's wrong with this. Is what's wrong with this. Unfortunately,
absolutely nothing.
We can't. Well, but you're looking at this from the perspective of one of very few FPV pilots in the world. No, seriously.
I'm sorry. I'm not giving in. I'm tired of giving in to this U.S. of wonderful A. Nope. Sorry.
Well,
not doing it.
Unfortunately, there are other countries you can move to.
You know what? The other day, my wife goes into the bathroom and there's a freaking guy there hanging out. You know what? Because people like you said, let's just be quiet and comply. And I'm not. And that's just an example of giving little by little.
Don't insult me, Carl. Don't insult me that way, Carlos.
No, but I'm not doing it.
Don't insult me like that.
But isn't it part of the same thing?
No, it's nothing whatsoever to do with it.
Of course.
I happen to believe that aviation has to be regulated. Okay, sorry guys.
Well, no,
it has to be regulated.
Airplane, yes. Flying a toy drone,
and
nope.
A toy drone can go up to 5,000 feet. Okay, some of these drones weigh 150. Some of these drones weigh 100 pounds. Okay, and there are idiots out there. There are idiots.
You know what? Then you know how they make sure that the gun seller checks the person who they're selling the gun to. Then do that with the person who's they're selling the drone to, and then if they do something stupid, the seller and the pilot both go.
Carlos,
come on,
Carlos.
Mitch, I got to step out.
Okay, Ray. Yeah. I don't want to turn this into a big argument with you, Carlos. It's obvious.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm just giving you my opinion. That's all.
Well, your opinion.
First of all, I'd like to throw a little opinion in there, and that is, I think at 55 pounds that the original hobbyist rule applied to, that as long as it wasn't over 55 pounds, you didn't have to register each. And first of all, if there's a bird out there flying at 50 pounds, if I'm flying a Cessna around, I would be concerned about a bird weighing 50 pounds. I wouldn't want to hit that. One plane I flew in all the time down Lake Worth once ran into a buzzard. It always flew crooked after that. I get that, but the 250 gram thing, I don't know. I think it should be like 2 pounds. If it's 2 pounds,
yeah, but that's neither here nor there. There has, unfortunately, and I'm not a proponent of government regulations, okay, but I am a realist, and I acknowledge the fact that there are people in our government that have power. I don't agree with how they got their power, but they have power. I've been a victim of these people before. I've had them on my ass. I don't like it. Okay, the prosecutors and regulators that goes right to their head, and they're sadists. They just like causing people trouble. And unfortunately, you can't get rid of these people. So you have to bob and weave around them in this world because they're there. And there's nothing you can do. So in the spirit of bobbing and weaving around people that have the power to fine you $182,000 and then ruin your life trying to collect it, if you want to do this, you have to play the game. Now, Carlos, very little of what you do requires you to change anything that you're doing.
Okay. Wait, but he poses a good question, Mark. Again, he goes, "What was the incident that brought about these ultra restrictive.
There wasn't
laws.
there wasn't any, and that's part of what I disagree with, and that's part of what I agree with Bruce of XJet over there in New Zealand. There was no risk assessment done. There hasn't been any deaths. It's been pointed out by Bruce that pressure cookers are more dangerous than drones because a pressure cooker was used in the Atlanta bombing. Yet we don't have to regulate pressure cookers.
Those guys practicing golf swings at the
golf swings,
are dangerous.
baseball. You know, more people get injured playing. More people get injured, hit in the head with a baseball at a baseball game, or knocked out by a golf ball on a golf course. Unfortunately, this world isn't fair, man. You have to navigate your way through the nonsense. Okay, so this is our hobby. We have a choice. Sorry, guys, you have a choice. You don't want to obey the law? Don't.
Mitch and everybody in the chat, does everybody here go out of their way to pay every tax dollar that they own? No.
Of course not, because there are laws.
Which laws that we want to choose and to obey? Come on.
But that's your prerogative, Carlos.
But that's my point. That's exactly.
But you go ahead and don't obey any of the laws. That's fine with me. You probably not get caught. Nobody will probably
will you still talk to me tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay, that's all I care.
But just don't become a proponent to the community of ignoring these laws, because a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable flying knowing that they were at risk of getting involved in the system, in the government system, of fines, possible criminal avoid the system at all costs.
That I do.
Okay, so, but your kind of flying is 1/1000% of unmanned aircraft.
Yeah,
and
I think
these laws have to encompass. Right? These laws have to encompass everybody. Sure, UPS has big bucks and Amazon has big bucks, and they're driving.
Well, this is more for GPS drones that go the distance. This doesn't really
matter.
An FPV thing.
Yeah, but I got a quad that goes 100 miles an hour that I could fly up to 5,000 feet if I want. And the kinetic energy in that son of a bitch go right.
You're not going to do it. I understand. I know what you mean.
Laws are made to keep honest people honest. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not going to argue with you about being a rebel here. That's not what this is about.
That's what this country how it started.
I came on here tonight to basically point out my views on the fact that what we got today, compared to what we thought we were going to get, was great news. And now, to really hear the reality of it, there he is. Yes. So how do you feel about this, Dan?
Well, I missed a lot of it. I just happened to pop in while Carlos was like, Grrr!
Yeah, Carlos is basically saying, they ain't going to tell me what to do, man. I'm just, so fine.
I've established that most of the FPV guys are probably going to be sky pirates at this point. And I think a lot of them have made that decision, whether, everybody agrees with it or they don't. It's going to be a free for all for the FPV field. I don't really know. Mitch, can you go like an overview of the regs that dropped? Because I thought a lot of the FPV stuff was actually excluded from that if it's home built parts. Was I wrong?
No, that's okay. The good news. That's the good news, Dan.
Right.
The good news is now that instead of having to have buy a quad manufactured with remote, you can slap a module on it.
Yes.
On anything. So that was the first gripe that I had, and that's good news. And you know this industry. How long will it take iFlight and GEP-RC and Emacs to come up with a flight controller with built-in remote ID, or
to integrate it?
Yeah, or even a little module the size of a postage stamp that hooks up to a UART and away you go. That's the answer. So that made me happy. I wouldn't mind, and you'll probably have to spend $15-$20 for these things when they start making them by the millions in China.
I think until then, aren't we excluded from that until they have
remote ID? You have 2.5 years
right
before you're required to have remote ID.
To have remote ID. Okay.
Right,
So
but
that
there
gives
are,
these
there's
companies-
other changes they made to the regs today that actually are good. One of them is there is now ways that you can legally, if you have to, fly over people and moving vehicles with drones, and they've spelled out a different bunch of categories and what you have to do, and you got to have shrouds, but still, there's now a legal path. If you're a guy that got hired, for example, to go out and film a festival with your drone. Okay, you're a commercial drone pilot, and you got to go out and film a festival, and you weren't allowed to fly over people. You were pretty restricted.
Right.
But now, if you have the right kind of quad, and it fits into one of those categories, and you obey the rules, you can legally fly over the people.
Interesting.
So, and moving cars. They also decided that none of this remote ID stuff is going to be connected to the internet in any way, which was another big worry.
I figured they would do away with that.
Yeah.
It
was impossible.
The whole thing sounded impossible to me, right? It was like,
Yeah. So no network connectivity in this stuff. It's strictly broadcast. Okay.
Right.
I don't know how the hell they're going to have a big enough a network of receivers to pick up all this shit, but that's their problem, not mine. You know, as long as I comply and have the transmitter, it's up to them to make sure there's a receiver somewhere that can pick it up.
now,
So wait, real quick, Dan. Time to Fly and what's his name? Art Co has joined us. So I just want to say hello.
Oh,
And John
okay.
Obsessed Jerry was also
How you doing?
there.
And
Al,
Chris
for it.
Hope
And-
says the government has
LDS.
caused the community to argue amongst themselves. And again,
I'm not arguing.
I didn't come here tonight to argue. I
And
came
I'm
here
not
tonight
arguing.
to spread the good news, guys. The good news is this
You
is not
just-
going to put us out of business or make us fly at AMA flying fields.
right.
We have a way to do it legally, but like you said, Dan, I think most of the FPV guys are outlaws anyway.
Yeah.
So who
Yeah.
cares? Who cares? They can't
Yeah.
police this. How the hell are they going to police this?
No, and I agree with that too. They don't have the manpower to actually police it. If you happen to get caught, it's going to be a rarity, man, and it's going to
Yeah.
be like out of the blue. Like you had to be in an area where you were asking to be nailed. By
You
someone.
Or
have to be recorded.
posting your stupid shit on YouTube.
right.
You know, don't
Somebody has
post
to call.
stupid shit.
Karen makes a call and says, "Ed's making noise over my trailer," or "Dan's
Yeah.
making
And
noise over
you
my
know
house.
what? They're going to do that. They're going to do that anyway.
Mitch is peeking in my window again. One of
Yeah,
those calls.
But what am I going to do with you, Carlos? You keep coming up with shit that ain't going to happen. Happens once in a friggin' blue moon. I'm not going to worry about that stuff. If you worried about that kind of crap, you'd never leave the house.
I think you'll find most of the time. I try to go out of my way
I
to
live in
not
New York. I worry
fly.
about little.
I try to not fly around even people building. Like it's rare that I'll do something like downtown. I wait until that whole park is cleared out of people before I fly it. Like I don't go out of my way to try to find people and fly around them. You know what I'm saying? Most of the places I fly are parks or fields where there's like barely anyone involved in it.
That's
you know?
true. That's pretty true for most
Most
for
FPV guys,
FPV
right.
guys. Just the camera drone guys that are flying into congested areas.
That's
But that's fine. This new whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, turned out to be much ado about nothing. Our lives and our activities are not going to be impacted, at least at
Heavily.
all for the next 2.5 years, and after
Right.
that, not heavily at all.
Yeah.
They may even.
Good.
I was going to say, they may even find out that in 2 years, the technology they thought they were going to have to administer their end of this mess isn't even ready yet. And
Right,
extend
up the
this thing
power.
for another 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
like you know, governments do when they have a project that's budgeted at $1 million, and when it's done, it comes out at $8.2 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I agree. I think for the most part, we got more from this than we were expecting. I think a lot of us were like, oh my God, the world is ending. I'm not going to be able to fly my FPV rig until they figure something out for us. And, you know, I think a lot of that might have been overkill.
You heard people with that kind of worry?
Yeah,
fly my
yeah.
FPV drone,
Actually,
really?
yes, man.
we've been
Speedy
hearing
goes.
that for the past 2 years, ever since they came out with this NPRM. Everybody's been the road ID, remote ID, our hobby's dead, protests in Washington, D.C., Race Day Quads is spending millions of dollars on lawyers to fight it. And turns out I don't see anything to fight here. Race Day Quads' business is secure now. In fact, they'll have an opportunity to sell yet another part. They'll be able to sell a remote ID module. You know who's getting screwed?
People giving Race Day Quad money.
No, old Jason at Remote Pilot 101, who teaches the FAA course. Because I don't know if you heard this, Dan, but they did away with the recurrent test on the 107.
Did they really?
The 24-month recurrent test is no more.
So you don't have to do it again. You take it once.
They have some currency shit that you can go online for free. Take one of these multiple choice tests, the FAA, the ones you can't fail. I love those tests.
Yeah.
You take the tests, they tell you you got these 4 wrong, and retake these 4 questions. They tell you what the answer is, and you go but take it, and then you get 100.
Well, I've been studying that Tony guy's video, and I think I'm almost ready to take the test and just complete it and get it over with. So.
Yeah, the 107.
So you're saying they basically give you the answers, Mitch? The test?
On most of these online FAA tests, they don't care if you pass the test. They want you to just read the information. They just want to make sure.
There is one correct answer, and it's not multiple choice.
Yes.
It's called multiple
They
guess.
do try to trick you. Like there's trick questions involved.
On the 107 there is.
Yeah.
And in real pilot tests there are.
I feel like even if you miss 5 answers, you're still fine. Even if you missed all the trick questions, I think you're still fine. It's if you start screwing up the easy ones that really
you need to get 70. You need 70% to pass on a 107. And I remember when I was taking my ground school for my pilot's license 50 some years ago. It's the same thing. Most people studied to the test anyway. You didn't study the subject, you studied to the test. And that's the way most of these things are. You end up, you spend your time with sample questions and you go into the areas that are going to be the tricks, the stuff they can trip you up with.
Later, Mark.
Yeah, see you, Mark. So
it's just like the journeyman's test for electrical work is the same thing. There were 4 answers on the multiple guess part, and 2 of them you could throw out the window right away. 2 of them gone. You only have to worry about. So there's 2 that you had to think about.
And the way the FAA works with
that 70% pass, kind of, I don't know, that whole testing, they give you the answers. That
better than knowing nothing at all.
Here's the deal, Carlos. Here's the way the FAA's philosophy is of these recurrent continuing education type efforts. In order to get to the test, you have to read the actual information online in a study session first, and at the end of each page or 2 of the study session, they ask you 1 or 2 sample questions based on what you just read. So you sit there for 15 minutes to a half an hour, and you're reading all this stuff, and that's what they want you to do. They just want you to read it, and this is their way of forcing you to read it. You have to go through the gauntlet of their test. So when you finally get to the test part of it, they don't care if you pass or fail. They make it they fix it so you're going to pass. They want you every so often to go onto the FAA safety site, and it's extensive stuff, and the courses that they have on there are unbelievable. Once you sign up for that, the safety FAAsafety.org, there's no cost. All that stuff is free. So you go online. With this new 107 requirement, they're going to have, instead of every 2 years paying $160, have to make an appointment at a testing center, go through all that drill. You're going to have to go on the FAAsafety.org website. You'll go to the 107 currency section, and whatever your assignment happens to be that's coming due that you need to study up on night rules or this or that, you do it. Takes you half an hour, costs nothing, and then your 107 stays current.
So you no longer have to pay for the test.
No, you pay for the 107 test, but you don't have to pay
the original
for the recurrent.
Right.
Yeah, and this is going to hurt these testing centers. Are going to lose a lot of money. The online schools for these tests that charge are going to.
Did I see in that email? There's only 230,000 107.
That's it.
Pilots.
230,000 107 pilots. Yeah.
I read that email. And I was like,
yeah.
So. Let me ask you a question.
That's not a whole lot of money.
Did they drop our height restriction? Did they add
No,
the
none of that stuff.
255 restriction? Never went
None
through.
None of that stuff has changed at all. I think the rules are still the same basic rules: 400 feet, line of sight, under 100 miles an hour, and outside outside. I know, and outside of restricted airspace.
Did you really say under 100 miles an hour?
Well, none of us go more than 100, do we?
Maybe the
Again,
GPS guys don't quite go that way.
Again,
From what I understand, less than 50% of 107 pilots renew.
yeah,
That's
because most people get a 107 and find out that
There's no money.
it ain't
There's
all
no
that.
money. There's no money in it.
You got to really chase it, and you got to drop your rates below everybody else to be competitive. It's just not.
Yeah,
worth
it's
it.
crazy. And everybody who got a drone for Christmas is now a commercial real estate video photographer, drone photographer. So
I knew that was going to happen though. The moment they started asking for 107, I'm like, oh boy, everybody's going to apply for this the first year that it comes out, and then there's going to be no work for anybody. And that's how it's been ever since. It's so rare to get. I'm not saying you can't get money. If you really probably put your mind to it, you can probably do it. But I think realistically, the best place to settle would be something like power line inspection. Find a company that's going to give you constant work all the time, no matter
construction.
what.
You find a company that builds shopping malls, and they need constant updates,
surveying,
so you program a mission.
Yep.
And every once a week you fly that mission and you compile it into an updated
and you charge them for their
charge them for everything. Yeah.
Yep.
But you need a lot of equipment for that. You need insurance. You got a business, and it costs money to run a business.
Cost of doing business.
Or else you could become a fabulously wealthy drone reviewer on YouTube.
Hey, somebody was talking about the rule is you can't go over 100 miles an hour. The only time I go over 100 miles an hour is when I'm getting ready to slam into the ground.
Did they really say you can't go over 100 miles an hour?
Yeah, that's a rule. That's a rule, an FAA rule. 100 miles an hour is as fast as you're allowed to fly. Yeah.
I'm building one now just to send it.
Well, but
what
that's
in the world.
But how many of us drive? How
You're
many of
such a
us drive?
rebel. You
How
talk
many
about
of us
me.
drive the speed limit?
I know.
Every one of us is a criminal. Every one of us breaks the law every day. Every day when we get in our car, we go out there and break the law.
I'm building a 12S rig now. I want to hit 200. Let's set the marker high.
Yeah, there you go. But nobody's looking, see? And if you don't put a video of it on YouTube, they're not going to know about it.
How are they going to know how fast you're really going? They're just judging by flying past your peripherals.
Yeah.
They're not going to know. I probably break over 100 every time I fly.
But I wouldn't be admitting this stuff on a live
I don't know what
YouTube
you're talking
stream.
about. I said probably. That's not did. Probably.
Yeah. Unless you got GPS on, you don't know how fast you're going.
I'm not showing you my.
If you are 5 feet above the ground and cruising fast, it looks like 100 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, it does. It
60
absolutely
looks that
does.
fast, bro. You get close enough to the ground, especially in super view, everything looks like
Everything
it's really
looks fast.
flying by. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I mean, I've flown in many a Cessna, and the cruising speed's like 120, something like that, 110. You're 300, 300 or 400 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet in the air. It looks like you're doing 20.
Oh, jeez. The Agent K, there was no backpedaling. I said probably. I made sure to use the word probably when I said it.
Oh man.
The words have a big impact here, buddy. Just like, have you been drinking tonight, sir? I might have been drinking. I don't know.
No, you don't. That's not a good. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say that.
I do, because I like to take him for the ride. Blowing this, sir? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I came on here tonight, Carlos, not to get my blood pressure up, but to actually tell people
series parallel is anything
to tell people that the news is actually good news for
For
the
those
drone
who were
community.
worried, for those who weren't worried, it's who cares? And I'm not disrespecting. I'm just saying it's not a concern.
You do understand, Mitch, that Carlos is attempting to help you out because by getting your heart beating faster, he's giving you what's the word?
Aerobic.
Yeah, exercise.
You don't have to skip rope. But I'm not getting. I hope I'm not getting you upset. I'm just sharing.
No, not really. Just the certain. I just don't want to. I don't want to hear certain. I don't want to hear certain things, Carlos, because that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm not here to start a revolution among drone people against the United States government. That's not what this is about. A lot of it. Look, I drive as fast as the next guy. Believe me, I break my share of laws too. But when you're dealing with government agencies that have power to regulate you, and it isn't a big deal to obey the law, then obey the law. They're not there. Why bother? Why take a risk? Why do we not fly over 400 feet regularly? Because we really don't need to. We don't need to.
And I don't actually. Yeah, that's absolutely 100% true. I don't need to.
There are certain things I do adhere to, and certain things I don't. I believe the height restriction is good because obviously manned aircraft flies up there. There are some things that don't make sense to me, like line of sight. I don't really understand the need for that. If you're out in the middle of a field and it's just you and you and you and you and miles of farmland, I don't think it really matters. But if you are inner city, if you're in a residential neighborhood, then I can understand why these laws
How about
are in place.
how about a visual? How about having a visual observer?
Yeah,
to me, that doesn't make any sense.
I think
you can't
that's goofy
see
too.
when you're wearing a pair of goggles and you have the best view of the house, and the visual observer sees a tiny little dot whipping around the sky. What the hell is he going to tell you? I'll tell you what a visual observer. According to the FAA, no, that's not what a visual observer is for. A visual observer is to warn the pilot if there's an airplane or a helicopter or something like that. That's the theory behind a visual observer.
Yeah, but I can hear them.
Solved with ADS-B.
Yeah, but what if it's a black stealth helicopter that goes?
Well, then get it the hell out of my way. So
and it's flying. And it's flying over your house at 50 feet.
Hold on. You wanted to be stealthy. That's your own fault. You designed something I wasn't supposed to see anyway.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think it's absurd. I think it's absurd. But they have those laws, and the only thing you can do is try to get them to change them. If you don't agree.
Bump into people with camouflage jackets, and I tell them I didn't see you.
I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, and here's your wallet.
Not the wallet thing.
Where I get the visual thing is when you're flying around corners and stuff, and you're getting ready to come around the corner and you don't know if somebody's there. I've seen a number of videos where people fly to school or whatever, and they fly between buildings. And if a person happens to come from the other way, you may not have enough time to react.
But your visual observer most likely won't be able to see that anyway. If he's standing where you are,
I'm pretty sure it's pow in the face, and then dude, did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I did that with the Tiny Hawk.
The theory.
I would. You have to be careful where you fly, what you fly.
Yeah, Time to Fly says he agrees as a Part 107 as a hobbyist. F that. Yeah, I kind of agree. But if you're a hobbyist, do your thing. If you're not posting your videos on a monetized YouTube channel, if you're just going out and just flying, ripping around parks and things, do your thing. There are no drone cops. Just be careful. Try not to hurt anybody or break anything. But I mean, I don't think we all need to be walking around with a rule book in our pocket. If you are a 107 pilot, they can revoke those privileges, just like they can take your driver's license away. Now, they can take your driver's license away. How many people who lose their driver's license actually stop driving?
Yeah.
So, again, rules keep honest people honest. The people who break rules don't give a shit about them anyway. You know, they don't care. They don't care.
Now, Mitch, when can I expect you, sir?
Not this week.
Oh,
No, I was going to go over, but my daughter's real busy, so it'll be sometime in the beginning of January. I'll probably come over that way. Yeah.
Well, I just charged up all my packs thinking you were coming
I'm
in
sorry.
the next day or
I'm
two.
sorry.
So
Well, then you're just going to have to go out and fly then.
gonna have
Sorry,
to.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
went-
I just fixed
I
the
went
entire
out,
scooter today. Put all.
I
new
went out
performance
today, and it was windy as hell. It was
Was it?
windy as it was windy as hell. But
Perfect.
I took the Tyro 129 that's now all apart. I took it out because I put the iNav 2.6 on it, and I wanted to make sure that it flew before I refitted it with a DJI system. So this is going into this thing.
Oh, nice.
So I moved the stacks. I shrunk the spacers between the stacks so there's enough room up in here to put that little Vista air unit. And this is a 7-inch quad with that has the GPS sitting up on the post, you know, with the compass, and so it worked out pretty good. So I just wanted to make sure it flew before I put the new camera in it. So but it was windy. I mean, it was 10, 15 miles an hour. It kept blowing around.
I saw Dobo and Mike the other day. I waved. They didn't wave back.
Mike who?
Mike from Accelerated Heights, Dobo's buddy.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was
Wow.
amusing. They were out at the tower. I was like, hi. They didn't wave back.
Really?
Yeah, that was funny.
Ah,
Yeah, in passing, it was hilarious. I got a kick out of it.
That was a good video that you had out there. You did at the tower. You were ripping around
did.
there, man.
3 different places. We did 3 different places that day. However, I can't, as much as I want to dive and drop, I'm only running 200 milliwatts. As soon as I fall behind those trees, I lose all reception. I really just need to get a better VTX on that thing so I can actually make the full drop, because as soon as I get behind those trees, it's gone. That sucks. One of these times.
Well, I got 4 thumbs downs tonight, so I must have accomplished something right. Must have.
Hey, we're winning at,
Yeah.
we're winning at life. That's good.
Yes,
That means,
yeah.
hey, haters' job is to hate, bro.
Yeah.
It was probably because of me, the rebel.
The rebel.
5. I'm counting 5.
No, I got 4, but I'll probably get a few. Every time I mention it, I get up to 10, and then they take then they take them away. I don't.
Oh, God.
I actually don't care.
Look, you only have to deal with it for another 4 days, and then they remove the dislike button. January 1st. Yeah,
Oh, really?
January 1st, YouTube
Are
said
they-
they're gonna.
Oh,
It's
well,
because
hell, let me
it's
find out.
because there's too many parents saying that it's causing their children mental instability problems.
Not to
No
mention,
way.
not to mention us old people who it's just pissing off.
Person, all right.
Is that a fact? Is that a fact?
Yeah. So it was in the
I do
YouTube.
wonder why America's kids are
Cool.
turning
Yeah,
to
softies,
bullshit.
big
They
softies.
can't handle a freaking
Oh,
thumbs
yeah.
up or a thumbs
Well,
down.
they don't have trophies anymore because everybody gets a trophy for participating now. There are no winners anymore. Yeah.
So now they're only going to base the analytics, the first part of the analytics, on how many likes it gets, and depending on growth. So they're putting it likes versus views. That's how they're going to be able to distinguish what the growth of the video should be.
Wow.
So yeah, yep. Too many kids are like, I'm going to kill myself because
Yeah.
of this like button.
Kids aren't supposed to be on YouTube anyway, damn it.
Softies,
Those
bro.
are kids that probably should kill themselves.
Bunch of softies, dude. We've created softies in our country.
Michael Wright, thanks for coming in, buddy. Appreciate it. I hope some of this was somewhat meaningful tonight. I'm optimistic about this. I like I said, the main things, to summarize, the main things that really bugged me about the proposed rules didn't happen. Didn't happen.
I'm happy.
They were talking about a cell phone app that John Q. Public could have, that when he sees a drone flying, it would tell him where the pilot was, what the
Nope.
pilot's name was, and where he lived.
That
You
would be
know,
infringement
yeah.
of my rights. I feel
Yeah.
like, dude, that would have.
Well,
to
that
be
didn't
driven up the wall.
that didn't happen. The fact that you had to have an internet connection in your cell phone in order to fly legally,
Yeah, no.
that didn't happen. So, and the fact that you can retrofit old drones with remote ID modules or technology without having to buy a brand new DJI drone or something that's one of the two that the government approved as being illegal to fly. That's the rest of the shit you can work around. I'm tickled to death because I'm just about due to go get my recurrent 107. I just
and you don't have to pay for it.
And now I don't have to do that anymore. So
Nice.
I mean, I just saved me $160 today. Whoopee. So
everybody always snaps when new rules come out, or they think they're coming and then they realize what actually gets dropped. It happens every time.
Yeah,
we knew they were going to be amended, and they might be amended yet before that 2.5 years or so.
Well, yeah, the actual rules were sent to the Federal Registry, and they will be published by the Federal Registry, they say, in January. From the point that they're published, you have 60 days to start obeying them. Okay?
Did you drop Carlos out? Or he dropped himself
Carlos
out?
dropped himself. He's back. He just came back in. You have 60 days. That's all the rules except the remote ID shit. All the rest of that stuff, we can start, flying over people based on these new rules and not taking the recurrent 107 test based on these rules, and then watch to see the development in the industry, because the 107, look what's built into your cell phone, the sensors that are now a standard part in the inertial measurement units, compasses, touch
They can
sensors.
find your phone. It shouldn't be that hard to put something on a drone somewhere, right? To
That's
find
what I'm
the
saying.
drone.
They can develop something to be less than the size of a little tiny VTX with a little GPS antenna that'll give them everything they need for this. And Dan, that all the companies that make these components, Maytech, iFlight, Emax,
Start putting them on the boards themselves.
they're going to all either put them on the board or come out with little modules. DJI is definitely going to come out with a retrofit for their fleet of drones, especially the big commercial drones.
Yeah, P51 asked a question that they asked before, and Mitch said he doesn't know. Mitch,
Will remote ID cause interference to other systems? No, they have to engineer it so it won't. That's part of what they have to engineer. They know what frequencies are being used in these drones, so they have to figure out a way that it won't screw up.
To me, that more than likely they'll probably what's the word? Looking for the word, where they put the signal on top of an original multiplex. They'll probably multiplex the signal off the VTX.
Well, it depends on what frequency, and I don't think they even know that yet, because I don't think they have like I said, a network of receivers to receive all the crap that our drones are going to be transmitting out there yet. So we'll have to see. That has to be developed. John Coopy has a good point. He says, yeah, DJI would certainly build this into their air unit as part of their air unit. And I think that if you went and bought an iFlight Nazgul in 3 years, it'd have this technology built right on the flight controller, and probably you add $5 to the cost of the drone. The market, it's a market. The market is going to dictate what happens, and supply. And now the government has created a built-in demand for these people. With millions of drones out there, who wouldn't jump on a new market that opened up?
I just re-registered my drone finally from 2016.
And again, that's another thing. For $5, I'll register my drone. Okay.
Yeah.
Just on the off shot that
I did that, Mitch.
yeah,
See,
on the off shot. But you don't even have to register each drone, Carlos. You for $5.
I understand. For
$5, you get a number, stick it on everything. Except the little whoops, because if it's under 250 grams, it doesn't need to be registered, and it won't need remote ID. So even in 3 years, the worst case scenario is we're all flying toothpicks, But the way these toothpicks perform now is incredible anyway.
Oh yeah, no, man.
That sector that you have is just nice.
Yeah,
just
3 inches running 4S batteries, bro, is insanity.
a quick hello to Drone Bum and the other
Slide
guy,
Dad.
Slide Dad.
Oh,
That's
Paulie,
it.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I had a bigger crowd tonight than I had last night. So they
'Cause I
must
was
like it
arguing
when
with
they
you.
must like it when I yell at you, Carlos.
Can I show you a flight when I was hanging out with Paul today?
I'm
the
actually
back?
gonna jump out, man. I'm getting really tired.
All
Fast.
right.
Don't jump,
I'm
step,
like
step
yawning
up.
a lot.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks for coming in, buddy. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
dude.
Good,
I just
good
want
to
to jump
see
in
you.
a little bit.
Good to see you.
Adios. Mike
Cool
Roach
roast.
Media join?
Later, bro.
Or maybe he was here
Take care.
before. I don't know.
Yeah, we had something to talk about today. I normally don't. This is the first impromptu time I've ever jumped on, but I saw Mel was on. He jumped on it earlier this afternoon, and I said I watched it for a little while, and I said very little of what he's saying is what I wanted to scream. That's not the way I see it. So I figured, well, I
Right.
can't do that. So I'll just do my own thing when he's done. So.
See, Agent
I
K just came here for the heated debates. He likes it.
Yeah, exactly. People like to hear me yell at you, Carlos.
They do.
Somebody's got to put you in your place. You know,
I
like
is.
I'm like.
Stirring the pudding.
All right, check this quick flight out. I'll give
All
you
right,
only 2
Carlos. Here we
minutes,
go.
2
There you
minutes.
go.
This is at Paul's place. It was too cold to be out there, so we made our own little track out of all kinds of stuff.
Oh, you guys are animals, man. I'll tell you. No, you are. You're animals.
We took a that was a Gap, the hand truck. What else? Oh, the barbecue pit grill stand. The 2 hula hoops on a cinder block. Here we go. I don't know what they call that other thing. I guess that's a cat back scrubber.
Oh,
We'll
that
see.
thing that he was like a golf
Yeah.
ball cleaner. Yeah, you were flying through.
Oh, we have a noodle. We flew.
You guys, I mean, I like all this quad stuff, but you guys really do need to get a life.
This is part of it.
Backyard of lawlessness.
This is part of it. A backyard of lawlessness. Look at this little thing.
Oh, that was good, man. Look at you.
This one was tough going the other way. The wind was tricky.
Let me ask: do his neighbors think you're all crazy or what?
No, they don't even hear these things. They don't know we're here.
Now, what quad was this?
The Mobula 6.
Oh, with the Cine one.
Yeah, the little
Well,
thing.
you're doing pretty good with that, man.
You just have to keep throttle up. Mr. Oh.
Drum Bub says this is our life.
You know what we did today? If you would allow me. All right, remember somebody was saying that we should joust.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about putting drinking straws on them.
So we took tongue depressors and put it on our quads. If you let me show you, I'll pull
Yeah,
up
go ahead.
the,
I'd like to see that.
I have to try to find it. He wrote bum on his. I wrote BFTS on mine. All right. All right, let me see if I find that video. We just do some nutty stuff.
You shared it on Messenger earlier, Carlos.
Yeah, but can you bring it up, Ed, on your messenger?
Oh, I don't know how to work that.
It's the same thing. Application, your messenger is not. All right, let me do it. Let me try.
Mike Night Train is here. How you doing, Mike? Mike Roche is
He's got a paperweight.
says so. For now, is my Mavic 2 a brick? No, Mike. No problems. Everything is good. The remote ID won't happen for 2.5 years, and by then DJI will have a nice little module you'll probably be able to buy for $29.95 and smack it on your Mavic 2.
Well, if it's DJI, it'll be more.
Well,
like
be up $79.99. Yeah, but it'll have that $10 part inside of it that you can stick on any other.
Right. Yeah, exactly, Mitch.
Let me see if this is the one.
I'm waiting.
I'm getting there. I'm sorry. All the pressure. This is pressure. See, I just dropped it. Ed, don't you have something to share?
It was windy. Was it windy up there for you today, Ed? It was windy. Windy as
Yeah,
out here.
it got windy.
It got windy. I went out about 1:00 this afternoon to fly this, to
isn't
just see if it flew. Here, I'll show you while we're waiting
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
Carlos.
Cool.
I'll show you
Pressure.
this. Where am I looking for? I'm looking for this. This is just the goggles video from that Tyro 129 running iNav 2.6, so you can see all of the information that it's got. Over here it's got airspeed. Over here it's got altitude. Here is battery voltage, timer. This is heading, number of satellites, distance to home, throttle position. At any rate, I'll start it up. And it's not an exciting. I was just flying around to make sure that it worked before I took it all apart and put the DJI camera in it. So this quad with the DJI camera is going to have. It's a long range quad. It's going to actually have some range, you know. So this was its last flight as an analog quad. And I'll tell you what, that iNav 2.6, they say they did something to the filtering on it. It was the best that this thing's ever flown. I've tried this on Betaflight. I've tried it on iNav. It is the best that this thing's ever flown. Tracked good, smooth. 7-inch quads are trickier to tune than the smaller quads. Anyway, it's not a real exciting flight, Carlos, but it was blowing like hell right into my face.
I like the way the props are in the front.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's got the GoPro mount up high, and you don't see the props in the GoPro footage. But the way this quad is designed, the camera sets way back, like a racing quad type of frame. Slide that. How you doing, buddy?
I found the video, but I want to find the one where we actually hit. We're just idiots, but it's so much fun. Yeah. I think this might be it. Let's see.
I have multiple OSD displays, but I didn't bother fooling with them because once I put the DJI thing in, then the OSD will be completely different.
This is it, Rat. It looked better.
Oh, is that the one that you put up in the tree?
It hit the road.
Is that where you found it, in the road?
Mm-hmm.
It was in the neighbor's yard across the street.
Oh, no kidding. So look at this car. Look at the speed. I'm going 18, 19 miles an hour with this thing.
Into the window.
Well, you don't have to worry about that 100-mile an hour.
No, not with this thing. But it's nice to know all this stuff. There's the altitude, 40 feet, 37.65, 30 feet, and it is picking up 16 satellites. The compass, everything works on it. And it gets long flight times too. I mean, you get 10, 15-minute flights on it.
Wow, that's cool. All right, whenever you're ready, Mitch, you can see the knuckleheads.
Oh yeah, I gotta see, man. It's not every day we get to see drone jet.
So
see, as much as you aggravate me, Carlos, this is why I love you, man.
We do just. So his says bum on it, and mine says BFTS. I did it quick.
I see that.
All right, so this is the challenge. I challenge you to a duel.
Yeah, Paulie, that's a lot of telemetry, but there's a switch, okay, and I have two other OSD screens. One of them has nothing on it. It's just the picture, and then the other one just has a few basic things on the bottom, just like you normally have.
Here comes our duel.
But if you're flying, if you're doing waypoints, or any kind of automated flying, you want to see, at least initially, till you make sure it's all working. You want to see all that information. Oh, that was cool.
Almost. We got like one or two really good hits.
Oh, good.
Quick. Oh!
Hey, this is a. We've invented a new sport here.
I'm telling you, the next thing. Well, I'm not telling you what we're going to do next. It's going to be a surprise. Oh! I don't know. I was cracking up. I was having fun.
No, this
It
is something you don't
does.
see every day, at least, you know.
Man, let me see. Do I get them? Yep. I think once or twice we actually like knock each other down.
I don't know if it's this clip.
You know, they have combat with RC airplanes with flying wings where they put
You get it. Oh, that
There
was
you go.
it.
That
You
was a
see
good
that?
one.
where you
Where you
put
get the
where
wings
everybody
on the
puts
flag.
puts streamers off the
Yeah.
back, you know,
Yeah, the crepe
I've seen
paper.
those.
crepe
They're
paper
cool.
streamers, and then you got to try to chew up the other guy's streamer, and a lot of mid-airs happen, and it's terrific.
We just, I don't know. I think Ed, somebody brought. Oh, that was a direct hit. Come on, we got to see that again. I wish I could do this in slow motion.
Well, you have to put it in an editor and slow it
Yeah.
down.
Whack.
Oh, that was good, man. But you still haven't knocked the tongue depressor off.
Oh no, that's
Was
what we
that
did.
just
We put it
under the
underneath
battery?
the battery.
Yeah, it's rubber banded under the batteries. Good idea.
Yeah.
You know what this reminds me of? The opening scene from Naked Gun, where you're in the car with the red light. Remember that scene?
Oh yeah. That was Police Squad.
Police Squad. Yeah.
Naked Gun was that other tall guy from what was his
Yeah,
name?
the car with the red light going everywhere.
Anyway, it was a tie. We decided.
That was cool. That was a lot of fun. That was great.
Yeah, we'll come up with some other nutty stuff one day.
Yeah.
Or place to fly.
All right, guys. I think.
Thanks for letting me aggravate you for at least 5 minutes.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with you sometimes. But,
Just mute me.
you're a rebel without a cause, man. You know.
I just
No,
not
he has
always.
a cause.
He has a
Yeah.
cause. Yeah, to piss me off.
No, that's the least.
Yeah, we both try and aggravate you, Mitch. You know that.
Yeah, I know.
No, I don't want to
That's part-
aggravate him. I like messing with him, but not aggravate.
You know.
That's no-
Well, it's the same
You'll
thing.
know if I really get aggravated because you'll disappear.
No, that
Makes
happened
sense.
before.
It
You'll
makes
just-
sense.
I'll show you how, like this. There you go. See, that's what'll happen.
So I encourage anybody
Just
who
so you
has
know, Mitch, you're not the only one to make me disappear. Okay?
Nah, we love you guys.
two drones, and you have 2 people, try to get somebody to just get a tongue depressor and
Yeah,
play.
there you
Have
go.
fun. Just be silly.
No, that's
All
great.
right. So
All
let me
right,
say
buddy.
goodnight first. Ed, smell you later. Catch you later. Talk to you later. Drone Bum, that was fun. We'll talk. Good night.
All right. Take care.
See y'all. Take it easy.
All right, Ed. Good to see you.
Sorry I missed you last night.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. We were going to talk about your VTX problem, but didn't you have a VTX problem?
Well, no. But-
Something about smart audio. You put in that email
Yeah.
you sent me.
Yes, because somebody put, the builder, because it's the same one that built the birds you fixed that Carlos
Oh,
had.
okay. I know. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And VTX has a plug on it that on the VTX has an audio channel.
Yeah. Well,
That-
some
that
VTXs actually have audio, microphones in them and everything to transmit audio. That's different than smart audio.
Okay.
Smart audio is a digital signal that gets multiplexed onto the audio channel. So it would probably say data or RX because it goes to a TX pad on the flight controller.
That was the question I wanted because I don't know whether it will work or not, but it does go to the TX on a UART. then.
Yeah, and then in beta flight, you go over to the peripherals thing and pick smart audio. Now, if there's 2 different protocols for smart audio. You have TBS smart audio and then IRC tramp. So you got to know which protocol it's going to use. But in the drop down in beta flight under peripherals, it'll those options will be there for you.
That was basically my main question.
Okay.
Was I was thinking it must be a TX on a UART because you're telling the VTX to do something, so you got to
Right.
transmit that.
You're
to
sending
the
data from the flight controller to the VTX. That's correct.
Gotcha.
All right,
Thanks,
buddy.
Rick.
Okay, take care. And Carlos is still giving me a hard time in the chat, even after he left.
Of course he is. Okay, later, Mitch. Good to see you, brother.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Thank you. Place it here. Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate that. And I'll go get a cup of coffee a little later next month when I get paid. Thanks for coming in, guys. We had a nice turnout tonight. Bigger turnout than I normally get on the FBB workshop. So maybe it's an idea for a new live stream of just fighting. Get a lot of thumbs downs and just have a good time. I hope that something that we came up with tonight cleared up some of this remote ID stuff. None of us at this point has really read the fine print and the fine points. I doubt I will. Be kind of dry reading all that government speak section, this paragraph, that. So we'll hear more, I'm sure, about this. But all in all, the point I wanted to make tonight is that I think the positives that we got in our community today from this far outweighed the negatives and put to bed a lot of the worst fears that most of us had, and that this would actually make FPV potentially illegal. And that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we have a 2.5-year break before we get to the end of that tunnel. So with that, guys, thanks for coming in. 2 nights in a row is enough for me. I'm going to go have a little dinner and maybe smoke a cigar and go to bed. So the rest of you guys, whoever's left here, Ed, Jerry Cavalry, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Coming in late. Ken, Drone Bum. Who else we got here? Time to Fly is still here. John Coopy. Hey, thanks, John. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for all the comments, too. And I hope that I think that some of the stuff you said in the chat, you pretty well got the same idea from all this that I did. So I didn't have a chance yelling at Carlos the whole evening to really read much of the chat, so I apologize for that. Chris Hope, thank you, my friend. Thanks for coming in. And Rad RH was here. Good to see you. Let's go back a little ways. Mike Night Train. Anyway, if I missed anybody else, Drone Shots, Jody, I know you've been here in and out. Agent K, my man, how you doing, buddy? Glad you were here. Art Co, good to see you, Art. And with that, I think Spank's been very patient tonight, sitting quietly and listening. So I will turn it over to Spank, let him say goodnight. And unless I see you beforehand, I will see you guys next weekend after the new year. Take the rest of the day off. Go play with your drones. Take care.